Hey, good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with Mr. Scott. He's going to share his background and have a few chats about sales. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk to the audience and dive into the things I love, sales and all that good stuff.
Cool, man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what are you up to?
Absolutely. Thank you. Who I am is it's about helping others. I've had great mentors and coaches in my life. It's how I try to raise my kids and teach them how we can give back to the world and also understand that there's always people around to help us. And, starting my Wall Street career, investment banking way back in 92, 93, I am that old. Um, and just having great mentors that helped me grow in my career. And I always laugh. People always say, "Hey, what stock should I buy?" And as back then, I go, "I have no idea. I'm on the sales side." So I've always been in sales. Created over $6 billion in sales throughout my career. I've been able to work throughout the world, and after a decade in investment banking and hedge funds, moved over more into some businesses on my own and failed miserably because I didn't have a coach, and then eventually got into the last decade or so the technology side and working with companies and helping build them up. Uh, two wealth events, worked with a big company, TriNet, helped them go public, and then another company, PeopleFax, I worked with and grew them quickly with a private equity firm who I reported to every day, whether the numbers were good or bad. So all you people are listening, if you got private equity behind you, they want to know why the numbers are what they are, no matter what. And we're able to help them in 18 months go from 8 to 20 million, and then be able to have a wealthy event for that company as well.
Yeah. When you say wealth event, are you talking about an exit or another funding round? Like what do you call a wealth event?
For TriNet, it was an IPO, a very successful IPO. For PeopleFax, they were acquired by another company.
Okay. So acquisitions or
Acquisition.
going public or some type of
Yep.
major event. So got your start in Wall Street, investment banking, hedge funds, private equity. Um, Talk to us about why you got into that field. Like how did you get into there and why?
Well, growing up in Stamford, Connecticut, it's a 40-minute train ride into New York City. It's Wall Street, right? And I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. And, everyone's the stock market, you name it. And so I wanted a job in that. And that was always my goal. Somehow I landed a job with a small fund of funds in Greenwich, Connecticut. So I didn't have to commute in the city and put a suit on every day.
Nice.
And it was, like I said, it was a godsend, that role. And it's funny, you think about Wall Street, I'm going to invest, I'm going to do everything. Like I said a few minutes ago, I ended up on the sales side of it all, not thinking that's where I was going to be, but I love it. I'm a relationship guy. And people always said, "Wow, how to be stressful." I said, "No, it's exciting." Screaming at each other, I had hair back then. I guess it was on fire too much. And it's fun. It's energetic. I thrive on that. Admittedly, I miss it to this day. I miss it. Not going back there. I love what I do now as a coach and helping others. But anytime I talk to someone who's in investment banking, my eyes light up, and they kind of have to say, "I got to go, Scott. I got to go." I'm like, "No, wait, I want to talk more."
What so what on a day-to-day basis when you were, doing that, what did a day-to-day, job look like?
You were just on the phone. Back then I had two phone receivers, and so you have one like this while you're dialing the other one, and because everything's going a mile a minute. In the U.S., obviously the stock market doesn't stop, and even though again I was on the sales side, it was selling certain products that we had that they needed to go do their trades that day. So it was screaming at each other, not taking it personal, with some of the brightest minds in the world. That's what I love about it too, and miss is just people. You're in the rooms with some of the biggest investors in the world. Tiger Management back in the 90s. Long-term Capital was a big client of mine before they blew up and almost blew up the whole world back in, was that 98, 99 off the top
What
of my head?
happened?
Long-term Capital, which had two or three Nobel Prize winning economists, they said everything had to go wrong, which was a 0.0001% chance. Well, guess what? That happened. It was 98. And they were a big client of mine. We had some exposure to that. That's when Goldman and Credit Suisse all came in and had to buy up their assets and save the economy.
Oh,
If
wow.
you can go back and Google that, like I said, about 1998, 99. So, but again, smartest, Nobel laureates, and they still messed it up. But the conversations you have and the energy, and that was when I was in Tokyo. I've been on that mountain behind me,
Oh, sweet.
Mount Fuji, and it's just fun. It's exciting, and yeah, you get rewarded well if you do well, and you get fired quickly if you don't.
All right. So as you're going through these different roles, Wall Street, investment banking, hedge funds, private equity, right? Like we're talking backwards first before we, talk about some of the things you're working in now. Out of all those, which business model, what kind of deals did you like the best? So business model and the types of deals you liked the best.
Wow. So a lot of what we sold, my piece was equity finance and prime brokerage. So it was more on the financing side of it all.
Mhm.
We did a lot of swap arrangements back with, again, the hedge funds, because that's who our client base was. I first started on the hedge fund side, and then I flipped over to investment banking side of the equation. That's the guy who says, give me $1, I'll give you 10 back to the hedge funds. So we did a lot of swap transaction was the main way. We did it way back then. Admittedly, I don't know if that's a term they use anymore. I've been so far removed from it.
Yeah.
But it was, again, sitting down, looking, it was all numbers. Here are the numbers. How does this make sense for us as the investment bank? How does it make sense for the hedge fund to leverage their capital at interest rates that made sense?
Then you said you took your swing at some startups yourself, and you said you've had some pretty big failures. What happened there? Tell us about that. We love
Yeah,
learning from other people's mistakes, right? That's the purpose of the shows. We can learn collectively, right?
Absolutely. And just a quick background. What got me there was, moved back to New York City in 2000, lived 10 blocks from the World Trade Center and worked a block from the World Trade Center. And on 9/11, had a front row seat. Literally the first plane on 9/11 flew 100 feet outside my office window into the first tower.
Wow.
So when the second one hit, ran home, got a wife and 4-month-old baby at the time, and ran from falling buildings, you name it, everything. And my wife at the time was from Hawaii, and we finally got to my parents' house in Connecticut at 10 o'clock that night. We lived down in Battery Park on the tip. Amazing life, loving it down there. And she looked at me, she goes, I know we talked retirement in Hawaii, but Tokyo and New York, I had enough. I go, me too. And I had just taken a job with a Japanese bank, guaranteed 6-figure bonus and all that, walked away from it, moved the family to Hawaii, and floundered for a lot in my career. Worked with Merrill Lynch as a financial advisor, raised 20 million in assets when everyone else was losing it. But after that and bouncing around, I said, let me try some things on my own. And a friend of mine was in the insurance world. So we said, let's partner together. People, Scott, people with money. He could wrap insurance products around certain things. Started reaching out to people, started to try to create some deal flow, say, let me be a VC type of guy, right? But no one would take me serious because I lived in Hawaii. and I was there for 6 years, but helped him build the business. My piece of it, I wasn't focused on it, admittedly. And the lesson is you've got to be focused as an entrepreneur. And we went through a lot. It probably 9/11 put my career on a 10-year spin. Our heads were spinning for about 10 years until 2011, and just didn't have enough vision, didn't have enough. Looking back as a coach now and how I coach people, I didn't have a written plan. I just said, I'd go do this. I start picking up the phone and making phone calls. People know me, and didn't have any direction at all. So as you're starting your own business, if you don't have a written plan more than just on a paper napkin, that's a good start. And you don't really understand where point B is, as I like to say in planning, know what point B is and work your way back to point A where you are today. If you don't know that, my favorite quote is from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And I went down a lot of the wrong roads that didn't get me anywhere. And eventually took a job, got back into working for a company in 2008. Yeah, 2008 when I moved to California from Hawaii, and in 2011, got into the PEO space, which is kind of co-employment and HR technology, and tried to start my own business again on the side. I'm going to go, I can say it now because I don't work for China anymore, broker, PEO world business, stuff that they wouldn't write, had great connections. But again, I didn't have a written plan. I didn't have an exact understanding of where to point my compass and go. Again, I'm a relationship guy. So my relationships will get me wherever I want. They get you in the door, but if you don't know who you are as a company, and I didn't, it was Work Comp for Less was the name of the company. I don't know if the website's still out there, but I went into meetings just, I'm going to build relationships. And you have to learn, yes, relationships are important, but there has to be sustenance behind it. Why is this relationship important? What can you bring to me? And those are the reasons, again, that failed miserably in those two offerings. And so I stayed in the corporate world. And eventually, obviously, now I run my own coaching business. And when I teach my salespeople over the years too, and think about how did I create $6 billion, I wasn't doing the things that I did in my own business. I was doing it, that I did for the big corporations, which is relationships with sustenance. And obviously that's a big thing I coach on. It's a big thing. And I've written the first draft of my first book, which will hopefully be out by the end of this year. It will not hopefully, never use the word hopefully, by the way. It will be out by the end of this year. And you got to have something behind it. It can't just be a handshake and a bro hug and, hey, we like each other.
Right.
What else can you do for me?
Well, man, it's true, right? So I'm a super connected guy, and I have a really solid network, and I went broke. I thought, someone told me once, Josh, if you can figure out a way to monetize your network, the relationships, you'd be a billionaire. And I had a podcast show back in the day that hit iTunes top of charts, and I had some of the most incredible people on the show, and it looked like, from the outside peering in, they're like, holy moly, you're crushing it. I went broke, bankrupt, building that. Absolutely. I didn't have any sustenance. Sustenance
and substance.
Yeah, that. I didn't have that. So people would get finished with the interview and they'd go, hey, what can we do together? And I'm like, I had no business model behind my relationships. Now we've adjusted, but I had to fail miserably before it clicked. Oh yeah, you need to have a business model. You have to have an offer. You have to have stuff you're actually doing for people. What are you going to do for me? I like you. Now what are we going to do together?
Yep.
So I love the fact that, like you're sharing this, and thank you for doing that, man. That's super cool. So how did those failures project you and move you forward?
They move you forward because, again, and it's funny, I had this conversation with my son who's 20 years old. He's playing baseball in college. Last night we were texting as I was flying, and we all have our ups and downs. And the old saying, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. But it makes you stronger not because you learn from it and act differently going forward. There's always going to be new experiences that we got to learn from, and new mistakes we're going to make, but you learn so you don't make the same mistake. And I know everyone's like, probably listening, yeah, we've heard that. Great, but are you doing it? Coaching's not difficult for me. It's easy. One, I love it. But two, it's not rocket science. It's reminding the people I work with, yes, you know that, but how are you acting on it? How are you doing it? How are you putting into your daily routine? How are you making sure you see that pitfall before you go around that corner again? And that's what I do with mistakes. It's learn from them. A great opportunity. What I love about being here with you guys today is I get to share some of my mistakes, and hopefully people learn. Why do I listen to podcasts? I want to hear mistakes. I don't want to hear success stories as much, believe it or not.
Exactly.
But I want to hear, well, let me rephrase. I want to hear mistakes that they turned into, well, here's why I am today. I did fail. I went bankrupt. I lost my house, whatever it is. And now here's where I'm at because of that. And here's how I got from there to here. And when you can do that with your mistakes, you're going to be stronger and better for it. And you will have that success. You just, as you know, with mistakes, especially you going through tough financial times, part of that 10 years, I short sold a house, a lot of credit card debt I couldn't pay. Credit score dropped. I don't know how low it went, but negative something, all that.
Yeah.
You can let that beat you up, or you can learn from it and say, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. So how do I get going? Where's there help for me? And that's a big part of coaching too, is I didn't realize the coaches I had back then that I didn't reach out to. And if I did, I probably would have been successful in at least the second business of what I did in the Work Comp for Less. I would have been successful in that. Yeah. I just didn't reach out to the people who were always willing. You've got relationships. I bet in your Rolodex, God, sorry, using an old word. in your list of all those relationships when you were struggling, if you reached out and said, hey, can you help me? 9 out of 10 would have said, heck yeah, Josh, what do you need? Let's sit down.
Yeah. and this is the struggle. I have a few podcast shows. One of them is a show for men, and so I could just speak for men here because I'm a professional dude. I've been it for 40 years, so I've learned how to be a dude. Is I have a hard time reaching out to people. I have a hard time asking for help. I want to be the shoulder that people lean on. I don't want to be the leaner, right?
Yep.
And that's hard for me. And I had to be humbled to the point where I had to ask for help, and that's when I got traction. Like in my own life, in my business, and such, I had to go, hey, dude, I need help. And then people would be like, oh, sure, what do you need? Really? I need some capital. Cool. Put together a plan, show it to me. And you're like, what? All I had to do is ask. Yes. Yes. All you have to do is ask. And then they'll tell you how to get what you need if they don't have it. So what did the turnaround, what was the pivot point where you say, I need to get out of this 10-year slump, right? What was the turning point for you, and how did you get out?
The turning point was God's a big part of my life. I'm not a religious guy, but I'm very spiritual. And the job with TriNet, honestly,
Yeah.
I was in a place I didn't know where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got the job because I said, I got to get a job, and I put myself out there. And part of me is, I do believe that he will lead us if we're willing to let go of the rope and enlist and just follow.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard Jason Poling, who was the guy who hired me, someone I'm still friends with. He was a mentor of mine. And I've said to him, I go, you don't understand the hole you took me out of with that job.
Totally.
And he just also a very spiritual man, and just, I don't know what he saw in me, but he just said, go, you got this, and kept pushing me. And I remember I'd walk in his office sometimes if I asked for something, and he's like, if I don't have these 3 things, when I asked for underwriting to get me, it was insurance world. He goes, get the F out of here. He goes, when you got what you need, he goes, and it was teaching me discipline, and not to just be what we talked about. Hey, I got relationships, let's go. No, you got to get disciplined. You got to work. You got to do the steps it takes to get you there. And I didn't know it, but I just was at that point. I think I was so beat up, I was open to whatever. Yeah.
So good. I had to hit rock bottom emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, especially, before I was open to receive, right? Open to receive wisdom and advice. Growing up, and when I was building my tech company or whatever, I would ask advice because that's what the books told me to do. So I'd ask advice, and they would tell me, and I'd be like, okay, cool. And I'd put it up on the shelf, but I would never really receive their advice. Or I was asking the wrong people, the wrong questions. So, yeah, man. So you said you were open to it, and someone believed in you. So step into let's parlay that into coaching. Someone believed in you, hired you, worked with you, took you out of a slump. Now you're crushing it, right? Like that believing in you. Why is that important for someone to believe in you?
Because life is tough, no matter what. You can look at LeBron James and think his life is, I mean, we know his background. Now his life is easy because, he's worth almost $1 billion, NBA superstar, blah, blah, blah. We all have difficulties. We don't know what happened in his home before he left for work that day. And we need someone to believe in us that today can be a good day. That, it's my youngest always laughed at me growing up. He goes, you always say hi to everyone and smile. He goes, you're so fake. I go, no. I want to set an intention for good energy around me. That means I'm going to lift others up. And I do that by when I walk into the 7-Eleven and get my Diet Coke and just like, hey, how's your day going as I'm checking out? He goes, you don't care how their day is. I go, I do care. I go, do I want their whole life story? No, but I want to put a smile on their face because that's going to help put a smile on my face selfishly.
Yeah.
So when you believe in someone, they can raise you up too. And as a coaching is a very intimate business, as I like to say. And we cry. I've had CEOs on the Zoom call, and we're crying, because again, just because someone makes $1 million, $1 billion, 10,000, it doesn't matter. We all have tough days. So you need someone to believe in you to say, hey, today will be a better day. Hey, you can solve this problem. Hey, you're doing great. Let's keep going. Don't let off the gas. As I like to say, my coach does a great job of giving me a hug when I need it and putting his foot as far up his ass as he can when I need it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a combination.
Yeah, it's so true, man. I've worked with coaches, therapists, counselors, and having someone. This was the weirdest thing, and I know this is a show called The Deal Scout. Here's what I find. This is a little tip or something explaining, why I call it the Deal Scout. I look for deals, but I do it with and through other people, right? So the Deal Scout, I find deals because I'm a network guy. I'm a relationship builder. Everything I do is syndication. So that's why we call it the Deal Scout, because I am looking for deals with and through other people. What I love about this show and having this venue is I get to know, like, and trust. I could build relationships with people via a podcast. And 9 times out of 10 after the interview, we wind up doing a deal together. That's just how the structure is.
Awesome.
So I love hearing these kind of stories and your advice, because I take a crap ton of notes and then I adjust and I tweak all the way through. So, Scott, this is super important, especially for a fellow networker. I've got a ton of people that I know who are similar to us. Relationships. It's all about relationships and the old school Rolodex, right? Like,
Yep.
but that has to have relationships plus X for it to bring fruit for you. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of buddies, right?
Yep.
So, how do you, as a coach, how do you help people, maybe like us, find out what that X is, the relationships plus sustenance?
It's simple, and you can put it under this umbrella: is don't be selfish in that connection.
Okay.
Right? How often do you get people reach out and they're asking you for referrals all day long, but do they ever offer?
Mm.
And that's the biggest thing. And it's, I work with a lot of salespeople who are, that insurance guy who's out there, the CPA, you name it, the realtor. And I look at their posts on Facebook and Instagram, you name it, where they do a lot of their stuff. I go, your posts are all about you.
Mm-hmm.
Offer me something. If you offer me something, I'm going to refer to you just because I get to know and like and trust you, like you said. So that's the beginning of that X. And then under that, there can be more detail understanding who am I meeting with? What does Josh need that I can help him with? If you look at it always as what does this person need that I can help them with, they'll end up helping you if they're able to. And that's if they can't, who cares? Again, it's, a belief in world abundance. If we keep helping each other, it's going to come back to us. You just don't always know when.
Yeah. All right. So I reach out to you for some type of help, right?
Okay.
Why are people reaching out to you, and what kind of businesses do you typically work with?
Yeah, it depends. Like we talked earlier, I do SalesSCALERS, which is one of my businesses under my coaching, and the other one, which is all sales related. The next one is Next Leader In, which we just launched, which is coaching that next leader to become the CEO, the CFO, et cetera. So, it depends. Typically, it's on the sales side. Hey, I'm a small business owner, a micro business, and they don't always realize they wear a sales hat too. And so it's helping them put a sales plan together so they can grow their business to levels. The statistic out there is, I think, there's about 98% of small businesses make less than $75,000.
Oh, wow.
Right.
In the US or the
In the
world?
US. In the US.
Say that stat again.
About 98% of small businesses make less than $75,000.
The whole company?
Yep.
Wow.
Now, a lot of small business are sole entrepreneurs. My dad, growing up, he was a sole entrepreneur. People like that have a few different side hustles. The guy selling life insurance, you name it.
Yeah.
What's great is I can come in through SalesSCALERS and in a 90-day program, put in place some basic sales stuff. Sales isn't complicated, by the way. I love it because sales is tough. No, it's not. It's relationships. You got to have something that make an offer that they need, understand who your target is, and help them. And an example, a small day spa I started coaching last year, and I've coached them for an entire year. We grew them in the last 12 months from $2,500 a month to over $9,000 a month.
Nice.
Both her and her partner quit their jobs as paramedics and now only run the day spa.
Wow.
And they couldn't be happier. And they're not working these three-day shifts. They're not, they actually see each other every day.
Wow.
And then there's obviously the larger companies that I can come in and, hey, you got a sales team of 5 to 25 people. What's your go-to-market strategy? That's what I've done. How do I grow people factor from 8 to 20 million? We built a team from 6 to 21 people, and all the things that go in behind a go-to-market strategy.
So with sales, right? You said sales is not complicated. Break it down. So I'm a new sales guy, green as can be, right? Never done it before, and we have to do some prospecting, right? What are some things that you look for, that I might be thinking about sales the wrong way, or some ways that I can improve and you could grow me as a sales guy?
Absolutely. It all starts with what's your plan?
Yeah.
Who are we? We're prospecting today. Does that mean we're going to make 100 phone calls? Or we can go knock on doors now that the world's back open again? What are we doing? Are we doing LinkedIn messaging? I mean, right? What's our plan? Understand who our target is. Hopefully, if you're getting, if your company, if it's a sole entrepreneur, we're going to talk about who truly is your target, your ideal client. If it's a big corporation, if you're getting hired, typically they know who it is, you would hope. And then it's what's your offer? And what's your 30-second elevator pitch? This is cold calling. You got 30 seconds to buy yourself 2 minutes to book an appointment.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Understand, what are you selling when you're prospecting? Believe it or not, I'm not selling, when I go to a networking event, I'm not selling a 90-day contract for coaching. I'm selling, does Josh want to have a coffee with me, sit down, and let's talk about how coaching can help his business. Then in that meeting, guess what? Now I know what I'm focused on. I'm trying to show you how I can help you, and here's the programs. Which one do you want? That's the biggest mistake new reps make in prospecting. They think they're signing a contract when they meet you.
Right.
No, we've got to build up. I've got to earn the right to ask you out. Right? So in dating terms, I got to earn the right to ask you out for coffee, for dinner, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You got to court them, as back in the old days. So that's where most go. They don't have a plan, and they don't understand, what am I selling in this one interaction? Each interaction, you're selling something different.
The selling to the next step, right? The cold call is to how do I sell 30 seconds? How do I get, 5 seconds to 30 seconds, right?
Yep.
And then what's the next step? The process, the sales process is, and sometimes people call and they'll just go, blah, 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 and they try to throw the whole sales pitch, and then I'm just like, click, hang up, right? By the way, if you guys call me and start that way, I will hang up on you. I love you, but I'm going to hang up on you.
The whole book they send you on LinkedIn, it's like, yeah, I'm not reading that.
And I know that you copied and pasted that LinkedIn message, and you're trying to go from zero, I've never met you, to try to sell me something that I don't like. You didn't even do your research. You don't even know that that's what I want. So as you're doing this, I love talking about sales, because, I had to do cold call prospecting, call 100 companies a day, B2B sales. I had to knock on doors, door-to-door sales, hated it, right? So in sales, what's your favorite way to sell? Like, what's your favorite venue or your favorite vehicle or channel for sales?
Well, I always said, I hate cold calling. It's a necessary evil, but it's how I created my business, my $6 billion, excuse me.
Yeah.
You've got to, it's the fastest way to get a prospect in your sales funnel.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That being said, it had to be around 2011 or so. And a friend of mine said to me, hey, we're going to this event on Saturday. We're going to learn LinkedIn and Facebook. I go, what the hell? I go, I'm barely on them. What? She goes, no, we're going to learn how to use them for business. It's like, fine. I walked out of there and I started using LinkedIn, and I can say any job I got in the next 10 years and all the business I personally wrote, 90% of it came through LinkedIn.
Totally. What are,
so
I love LinkedIn, by the way.
So cold calling is not dead, by the way, but a proper short LinkedIn message to warm it up, where when they get your call, is a great connection. But again, you got to understand there's not one marketing thing you're going to do. You've got to do a few of them in concert, and how they work together. And understand this, cold calling is not sales. Cold calling is marketing.
Hmm. All right.
Anything that puts a
Explain.
lead into your funnel is marketing.
All right. So explain the difference between cold calling being sales versus cold calling being marketing. That's a paradigm shift I haven't heard before.
Cold calling being sales is what we've talked about earlier. I'm trying to sell you the deal on the cold call. Cold calling being marketing is I'm trying to put a carrot in front of you to say, yes, I want to meet with you or your team
And
and
that's the
become
time
in your
sale.
sales funnel.
So yeah, I think that's interesting because the cold call is a way to just get the conversation going, and you're calling, in the B2B world, you're calling busy entrepreneurs or business leaders, and they don't have the time to just, be interrupted and then blah, blah, blah. It's to get the next step in it. So you go to an organization like this, the day spa, from 2,500 a month to 9 grand a month. That's a life changer for that
Yeah.
for that group, right? Like,
Yeah.
how did you do it? Like, what are some of the things that you put into place for them?
There's a lot of things we had to put in place. One, they had to learn to be business owners. So part of them was some business coaching too,
Mhm.
but we only really focused on what's our plan. My clients, I go, I know you're gonna get tired of this, but here's the drum. Plan, plan, plan. What's our plan for today, for the next week, for the next 90 days? And I don't really go on beyond a 90-day plan because you can't control what goes on that. Now, do we know our goals for 1 and 5 years? Yes, but we got to break it down into daily, weekly, and 90-day segments of the plan. So it starts with planning. And then it's understanding for them, they had to understand who is our true target market. Who are we going after? And they have some specialties. They're not just a day spa of let's go have the fluffy day spa. They work with people who have injuries, who had surgeries, things like that, athletes who need to recover. So great. Now we kind of know who our target is. Where do we find them? Where are they? Who can introduce us to them? So we had to build their entire go-to-market, everything that's involved. And then the next thing, which was probably the most, that all stuff was easy. Here was the hard part. They had to believe they were salespeople. And even today, when I talk to them, they're like, we're not salespeople. I go, you went from 2,500 to 9,000. You don't think you're a salesperson? You sell out your appointments every day now. You are a salesperson.
Totally.
But we also set it up to where they know what they're going to say when someone calls. They're about to hire a receptionist who will just answer the phone. And guess what? We'll teach that person what to say. Everything in my life is scripted. People laugh. I can do a 3-hour presentation. Guess what? I scripted it. I review and practice it over and over again so that I'm not literally reading the script while I'm in front of 50 people.
Yeah.
But I script it. So I know because I'm prepared. So when she goes to a networking event, and I do this too in my car before, now we're back to networking events again. I read over my script, my 30-second speech in my car 5 times before I go into that venue to go start shaking hands and see if someone will meet with me. So those were all the things we had to put into place. That's a lot, but we had to put a lot because they had nothing.
Yeah. So this is so cool because most entrepreneurs, right? I can't say most, in this situation, right? They have their craft, right? Their day spa, or the massage therapist, or this guy makes wood tables, or whatever the case may be. So we get into the business because we're like, I like doing this craft. I'm good at this craft. And then we get all set up, we get our camera set up or whatever we do. And then we're like, all right, customers, I'm ready for you. And then crickets, right? And then we're like, oh shoot, I got to go get customers. And then they're like figuring out how to be a business owner, how to improve in their craft, and how to sell it, right? Yep. So you come in and you help with the coaching of business owners. Like, hey, here's some business fundamentals. Here's where I screwed up. Here's how not to screw up. Let's create a plan. And then you help them coach on how to get more people to say yes, essentially.
Yes. Yep.
What is the biggest hurdle people have when you're having a conversation with them and they go, yes, I need that? What's the biggest hurdle from getting them to go, yes, I need that, and then let's do it?
It's a couple of things. It can be a mindset that they don't believe they're supposed to be successful in life.
Yep.
I stole it from somewhere else, but I've done a few podcasts and blogs on it. The law of deservedness. That's the biggest one. They don't believe, hey, oh my God, Scott, you can grow me from $75,000 a year to $200,000 a year, and you don't do it in a year. Sometimes it takes a couple of years to get there, of course. But do they believe it? The biggest fear we all have is success, not failure. I can dance with the devil. I know I struggle to pay my bills. Every now and then I can go out for a nice meal and here's how life works, but it becomes comfortable. I'm used to it. I've got to break them from that habit and help them take the blinders off that they deserve success, and that they actually are able to go have success.
All right. I got to challenge you on this. The
Sure.
biggest fear. All right. So let's take away, in business, right? Let's remove anything. I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of all this stuff. In the business world, you're saying the biggest fear entrepreneurs have is the fear of success, not failure, not bankruptcy, not getting sued, not any of that. You're saying that the greatest fear in your experience.
When you
is
dive
success.
into it, we think it's everything you said. But when you dive into it, why didn't you make that extra phone call before you left today?
Fear of rejection, maybe?
There is rejection in that, but what if they say yes? Do I have to work more? What happens if I have 10 new clients? Uh-oh, I'm going to get really busy. Can I handle that? Well, yeah, you can. We'll figure out how to handle it. We'll go hire new people. We'll add to your team. We'll grow the business.
So you're saying, all right, let me try to wrap my brain around this, right? So if the fear of success is, let's just say that's my greatest fear, then I'm going to do everything I can to potentially avoid that fear and that pain that's associated with it, and I self-sabotage the actual success.
Yep.
All right.
I know a lot of people I get the same reaction.
Yeah.
And when I coach them, I go, let's dive into it. Why didn't you do this? Or why did you do that when you knew you weren't supposed to?
Yeah. Now I'm a risky guy, right? Like I've been in venture capital, private equity. I built tech companies. I cashed out government pension, went all in to entrepreneurship. I built spec homes starting in 05 and you got burnt in for me late end of 2006, right? Like, so fear for me, not afraid of failure at all. Not afraid of, giving it a shot. But I'm trying to be introspective here. Was I afraid of the actual success, and did I self-sabotage it? That's interesting. Never really thought of that. Am I afraid of winning? I've been surprised that I won a few times.
Sure.
Huh.
But also, Josh, you and I wouldn't be talking here today if you weren't part of more of that 1% who does everything you just said.
Yeah.
We're talking about the larger group as a whole.
But I think you're on to something, man. I think you're right. Like I could apply this to myself because I'm not afraid, like I've had enough failures. At first, like the paying of failure really hurts and I'm sad and lost all my money, ready to, but you do that a few times and you get a few failures on your belt. You're like, I'll try something else. And you pivot faster, you build faster, you build stronger, and all sorts of cool things happen, based on past experiences. But the fear of failure, I think, or the fear of success, Scott, this is really challenging to me because I think that might be a stumbling block. So let's just say you and I are working together. I'm going to get some free coaching here. All right.
Absolutely.
And the audience.
First session is always complimentary. Then we go into the investment.
There you go. Perfect. I like how you set that up. So with when you experience someone who had a story like yours, right? Like went out there, blew it out of the water, 6 billion in sales and crushing it. And I could step in any company, build it, grow. And then you had, some failures and a 10-year slump. And then the next step is you got to get back on your feet, get someone to believe in you, get a coach, all moving forward. And then the next major hurdle people have to get over as they start to build and grow, they'll hit a ceiling, it sounds like. The next step is getting over the fear of success, that the law of deservedness. What does that look like? How do you know that you're working through that?
It's kind of like all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh, wait, that's where I was. Look, I can barely see that anymore. when you're kind of, you're in the ocean, you're swimming a little bit, you don't realize how far away from the beach you just got.
Wow.
It's kind of like that, but in a good way. And you're like, oh crap, wait, I'm now at $125,000 a year, not 75. Or as a sales rep for a big company, wait, you mean it's June and I'm about to hit my number and win President's Club? Oh, wow. You mean the CEO's calling me to check in if I need his help? It happens. There's not that moment where you feel yourself climbing over that proverbial wall. It just all of a sudden you look back and you didn't realize how far ahead you already got. And it can be an emotional thing. I know for me, it has been, where it's like you almost drop to your knees and you're crying like, oh my God, wow. I always believed in myself, but I always also held myself back. I can see that now.
Definitely holding myself back 100%. Right. I mean, I work with coaches. I have these shows, and I've worked with, like I said, therapists.
I am not a therapist, by the way. Make sure anyone's listening. I am not a therapist.
No, but this is super cool, Scott. That's something that I really need to, and I want to encourage our deal makers in the audience, especially on the sales side, deal makers, right? Like one more phone call, one more this, one more that, hitting our goals, hitting our metrics, right? Like we're very driven individuals. So let me just speak for us. Let me challenge you guys and gals, deal makers. Is your greatest fear the fear of success? Have you self-sabotaged? Look back in the patterns of your life. Wow, this is super cool. I'm gonna have to really chew on this, Scott. I really appreciate you sharing this. So as you're building this, right, I see that you're really invested in helping build and work with scaling businesses, and it looks like some stuff with accelerators and board of directors and all these cool things that you're doing. What's winning look like for you? Where do you want to see yourself go?
Winning for me is keynote speaking a lot more. That's something I want to get out there where I can reach a broader audience. When I started my coaching journey in August of 2019, I set a goal. I want to positively influence 1 million lives in the next 10 years. So obviously that's my big measurement. I know my metric. It's that one metric. And people are like, how do you measure it? I go, well, I'm on a podcast. How many viewers do we have? I don't assume I influence everyone who's going to watch this podcast, but there's a number in there. I ran a training yesterday, 10 sales reps. They have families. When I influence positively one person, that affects their family. So that's what to me is, how do I get more exposure, right? That's why I love the opportunities to do things like this. I want more exposure so that I can help more people. And the next big target is to be able to fund my own foundation in the next 2 years that will give back. And as I said to you earlier before we got on camera, the name of my business that my LLC that owns everything I do is Shinjidu, which is Japanese for believe. And the foundation will be the Shinjidu Foundation, which is our believe cause. And if you go to SalesSCALERS, that's 2 S's in the middle.com, you'll see our why and everything. You'll see we list we believe in, and it goes through a whole bunch of stuff. And that foundation will be to just very simply, it's not about curing cancer or world hunger. We'll do everything. We want to make our local community here in Austin better. And the more we build the foundation, we start branching out to Texas and the rest of the world.
Super cool, man. During this interview, I want to ask you one of these questions from these cards. So tell me when to stop and I'll read you a question off a card.
Stop.
All right. This is your question, sir. Are you ready?
Yes. I love this. This is great.
Given the chance, what would your worst enemy want to tattoo on your back? This is so weird.
Oh my
this
God.
has nothing to do with your with deals or whatever, but given the chance, what would your worst enemy want to tattoo on your back? That is a weird question. So you can say next.
I think who my enemy is. I know if it was one of my 2 kids who are 20 and 28, they'd want to tattoo something very girly on my back and a butterfly that's pink and everything so that everyone sees it. That would be that'd be both of my boys.
So next time we see you, we're going to ask to see the tattoo. Yeah, so Scott, like one of the things, that we chat about the show, I always like to add some crazy question that pops out of these things, but that's an interesting one. I
That's a
haven't
good
read
one.
one yet. As you've experienced these worlds from Wall Street, investment bank and hedge fund, PE, you've built some, cool companies and, put 6 billion in sales and raised 20 million over here and done that. What would you look back and say that was my greatest accomplishment in business?
That's easy because whenever you interview, you get asked a similar question.
Yeah.
In 2013, I believe it was, give or
Yeah.
take a year, everyone on my team at TriNet,
Uh-huh.
as of March 1st, was on President's Club. We celebrated in Aruba on a beach.
Oh, that's
Every
cool.
single one of them. That was about 8 of them.
Yeah.
It's never about me. They all had that success. We created an environment for them to be successful, and TriNet did a great job. You bring your family, your spouse, whoever, and when you can sit back at, yes, the Ritz-Carlton with a nice cocktail in hand and see your team with their significant other just being celebrated.
Mhm.
That I remember sitting there and just tears in my eyes. I'm like, this is why I do what I do.
with with what you're doing, coaching people on sales and scaling their business and adding some business coaching in there as well. What's a good place for people to connect with you and do a deal with you?
Yeah, great place. Scott at SalesSCALERS.com. And that's two S's in the middle, sales, plural, scalers.com. Obviously, you can always find me on LinkedIn as well. But that's a great place. Happy to, as I said earlier, we do complimentary coaching call. You want to talk about sales, you want to talk about leadership, you want to talk about your business, you want to just, I love all the questions today, Josh. We got into a lot of mindset. A lot of that falls under mindset of performance.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Let's figure out where you want to get to. And if we can help you, we're happy to. If not, we recommend some great people too. Or, every interaction is about making the world a better place. So even if it's a 30-minute call, there's going to be something that you get to take away with and just go make life better for yourself.
Super cool. I have found that where the head goes, the body follows. I learned this in wrestling and in jujitsu and such like
Mhm.
that. And that's the same. That's a martial art skill. You want someone to move somewhere, you grab them by the ear, and where their head goes, the body follows. But that's also true in mindset. Where the head is, the body follows. And if you have that fear, if you have self sabotage, if you have the I don't feel like I deserve this, then man, I'll tell you, you will blow it apart. I've done it. I've done it multiple times. Sounds like you've had some adventures there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one more piece of advice that you have for entrepreneurs who are looking to, maybe a resource. Obviously, they could reach out and connect with you, but what's a resource that people can go that you appreciate that helps improve their mindset to have a healthier mindset?
Ooh, mindset's a tough one. Resources, a lot of books, I got to tell you. That's where I start. High Performance Habits,
Mm-hmm.
um, Limitless by Jim Quick.
Yes.
The Infinite, depending what your role is, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I learned a lot from that one. If you're a leader, Multipliers by Liz Weissman.
Yes.
Books. There's so many books and amazing podcasts like you're putting out here, Josh, that's the first place to go to start getting some thoughts in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's go find a coach. Go find a coach you connect with. Like I said, coaching is an intimate relationship. And I don't lose opportunities because someone doesn't think I can coach them. It's just we didn't connect on an intimate level that we can be fully open and transparent with each other. But find your coach who can get you to where you're trying to get to. And, like Tiger Woods, every other year, sometimes you switch coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he's at the top of his game. He switched his coach. Why? He wanted to get to the next level.
Yeah.
So yeah, those, and obviously there's great incubators out there with some great mentors. New Chip, who I work with myself, here in Texas, you got, was it Capital Factory is another one. In your local community, there's so many incubators. If you're at that level of where you're going after, and they're going to set you up with mentors who can help you with some of this stuff too.
Super cool. What's a question I should have asked you that I screwed up and didn't ask?
That's a good one. I wasn't expecting that one. What's most important in leadership?
Go for it.
Influence. in communication. And if you can communicate and talk in their language, not yours, you can influence anyone. Obviously, in the right way, of course,
Yeah.
but communication. I'm a certified DISC practitioner, DISC, Myers-Briggs, all that stuff. Communication is not what I say, it's what you hear. And you've got to learn to be able to read people and understand, for DISC, are they a D and ISC? And talk in their language to pull them to center so you guys can now understand each other.
Totally. Ah, that just hit me the other day. I took my daughter on a 5K run, turkey trot back in
Nice.
Thanksgiving, and and I'll end with this. And I thought it was a great event. You know, she was tired. She's 9 years old, and what she remembered was that I popped her hand because she was holding on the stroller and I'm pushing two other kids, and she remembered that out of all and it's not what I had to like. I was praying about that this morning. I was just like, that's what she remembered from this. I was like, I need to make sure that I'm communicating. I need to make sure that I'm doing things, and how are they receiving it, not how I perceive that I'm doing it. So yeah, man,
Exactly.
that's aligned, and I'm trying to lead my kids, and then figure out how to lead a team over here too. But super cool chat, Scott, and you challenged me on multiple fronts. So like, I love it when I have a guest that does that for me and my audience. So thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much, fellow deal makers in the audience. As always, reach out to our guests and say thank you if what they say resonates with you. If you need help with mindset, if you need help with some coaching in your business or sales, like, reach out to Scott and just have a chat and see if it would be a good fit for you. If you're working on a deal or you're a deal maker and you want to come chat on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. Bye-bye.